I had finally drawn the line. I refused to co-sign another loan for my son-in-law, the same man who had treated my wallet like his own personal cash machine for years. That was when my own daughter, the girl I had carried through so many struggles, looked me square in the eye and said in a voice as cold as steel, "Then you had better not expect to stay here much longer." That moment broke something in me. I could not take another insult, so I packed my pride and left without waiting to be thrown out. Funny thing, though, afterward, they came begging me to return. Before we continue, please subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. That night, the clatter of dinner plates echoed as I set them down one by one on the polished mahogany table. It was February in Portland, the kind of evening where the chill still lingered like leftover winter. Yet inside the dining room, the air felt heavy, almost too warm, thick with something I could not quite name. Ethan sat there with that familiar expression plastered across his face, the look of a boy about to unwrap his dream present on Christmas morning. His fingers danced over the glass surface of his tablet. "Garrett, right on time," he said brightly, swiveling the screen toward me. Blue charts and glowing graphs lit up the darkened kitchen. "I have been working on something extraordinary," he said, excitement dripping from every syllable. Miranda stopped mid-step, balancing a bowl of mashed potatoes in her hands. "Go ahead, honey, show him," she urged. I kept setting out the forks, my body moving on autopilot after 4 long years of living under their roof. From the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the photographs on the sideboard, snapshots of Miranda's wedding, the children's graduations, and countless Thanksgivings. 12 years of family milestones, but also 12 years of checks I had written, mortgages I had covered, and emergencies I had pulled them out of. "This is it, Garrett," Ethan declared, his voice swelling with that entrepreneur's swagger I had come to know too well. "My information technology startup." He tapped the screen with confidence. "The platform is ready. Beta testing is finished. All we need now is funding for servers and office space." He tilted the tablet again so I could see. Numbers leapt out at me. An initial investment of $160,000, projected returns, detailed market analysis. My chest tightened as though the figures themselves pressed down on me. "You have always been there for us," Ethan said, leaning closer. "But this time is different. This is not just a loan. This is an investment in our future, Miranda's future, the children's future." My hand froze, fork hovering over the final place setting. The words slipped out rougher than I intended. "Ethan." "I have been carrying this family financially for 12 years, I said, my voice unsteady. Miranda's head snapped toward me. "Dad, this could change everything for us," she argued. I shook my head. "I am tired of being treated like an ATM." The room went dead silent, heavier than a thunderclap. Miranda's bowl trembled. The light from Ethan's tablet dimmed to nothing. I watched color drain from my daughter's cheeks before rushing back in angry streaks. Her voice, when she finally spoke, cut sharper than any winter wind outside. "Then do not expect to stay here much longer." The fork slipped from my fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor. "What did you just say?" I asked, stunned. "You heard me." Miranda set the bowl down hard enough that mashed potatoes sloshed over the rim. "If you are not willing to be part of this family's success, then maybe you should not be part of this family at all." Ethan tried to calm her. "Miranda, come on, let us just—" "No." She yanked her arm away. "I am done walking on eggshells. We have given him a home for 5 years, and now, when we truly need him, he turns his back on us." The room tilted around me. My head spun. Almost 18 months earlier, after Vivian passed away, it had been Miranda who insisted I move in. "Family takes care of family," she had said then. Now that same mouth told me I was no longer welcome. "Miranda, please!" My voice cracked. It sounded old, even older than my 73 years. I did not mean. "Save it," she snapped. Her heels struck the floor like gunshots as she turned toward the kitchen. "Dinner is getting cold." I stood frozen, staring at the place setting left unfinished. The fork lay on the floor, catching the chandelier's light. Ethan cleared his throat, mumbled something about checking emails, and disappeared into his office. My legs wobbled as I made my way to the stairs. Every step echoed in the suffocating quiet. Behind me, Miranda clattered dishes loud enough to make sure I knew she was still furious. Up in my room, I closed the door and sat heavily on the edge of my bed. My eyes landed on the photographs lined up on my nightstand. Miranda at 17, glowing in her prom dress. Miranda at 27, cradling baby Zara. Miranda last Christmas, grinning with her arms wrapped tight around Ethan. When had my support turned into an expectation? When had love turned into obligation? Out my window, the lights of Portland shimmered against the night sky. Somewhere out there, families were sitting down to normal dinners. Dinners where love was not something you had to pay for. Hours dragged by. The only sound was the muffled argument drifting up from downstairs. I could not catch their words, but the sharp edge of anger carried clearly enough. At 8:43 p.m., I finally stirred. In the corner sat the old filing cabinet that had stood beside me since Vivian's passing. I had always clung to order, a habit rooted in the military and strengthened through decades of marriage. That filing cabinet held the story of a lifetime, carefully sorted, just like I had always been. Every receipt, every check stub, every bank statement I had saved was stacked neatly in my filing cabinet. When I yanked open the bottom drawer, the metal rails squealed under the weight of years. A folder marked financial records. Miranda and Ethan sat thickest of all. My handwriting labeled it clear as day. Inside, papers slid across the desk, bank statements, canceled checks, transfer slips. 12 years of support turned into expectation. The trail began with their wedding in May 2008. Venue, caterer, photographer, $40,000, all signed by me. Our princess deserves a fairy tale. I had told Vivian back then. I switched on the calculator. Mortgage payments first. $4,200 a month times 12 times 4 years. $201,600. Then cars, insurance, tuition, Zara's $12 semester, Blake's $6,400 tech program, holiday gifts, medical bills, emergency repairs, even their Hawaii trip and Miranda's dental surgery. The total climbed like a death march. $300,000, $350,000, $400,000. By the time I stopped, the number glared back. $390,000. Nearly $500,000 gone. Vivian's insurance, my pension, our savings. I picked up the phone and called Columbia Trust. This is Garrett Sinclair. Cancel the transfers to account ending in 5827. The agent asked for a reason. I stared at my reflection. Gray hair, tired eyes, but a firm jaw. I'm done being taken for granted. 20 minutes later, it was finished. At the bottom of the folder, Miranda's power of attorney papers sat waiting. I had signed them 2 years earlier after knee surgery. Now, I fed them to the shredder, watching her authority vanish in strips of paper. For the first time in months, I smiled. That night, I searched online for Portland apartments, small one-bedrooms, high-rises downtown, quiet spots near bus lines. The house creaked around me, but I barely heard it. My mind was already gone. By Friday morning, sunlight poured across the hardwood of a downtown place. Diana Marsh, the realtor, waved toward the kitchen, perfect for one person, close to Pioneer Courthouse Square and buses. I barely listened. The apartment felt right, quiet, clean, mine. She pointed out the park across the street. Very peaceful. Residents like to read there. I'll take it, I said. She hesitated. Don't you want to see the bedroom, the bathroom? We haven't even discussed lease terms. I need peace more than square footage. I opened my checkbook and wrote the answer. The first month's rent and deposit were done. 2 hours later, I pulled up to the Beaverton house. Miranda's car was gone. Her Friday shift at the cafe would not end until 3. Ethan's sedan was missing too, probably parked at his co-working space while he chased another big idea. The house key felt heavy as I turned it. Walking through rooms I had called home for 5 years, I decided quickly. The wedding albums and my military medals came with me. The recliner Vivian gave me at 68 stayed behind. They had grown used to it. The piano had been Vivian's pride, but Miranda claimed it after the funeral, talking about how Zara might play it one day. Let her keep that dream. Summit Moving showed up at noon, 3 men and a truck that barely fit in the driveway. The crew leader, young and polite, asked, Mr. Sinclair, 1-bedroom move, senior discount, correct? I handed him my list. Everything with blue tape goes. Leave the rest. What about the piano? Beautiful piece, he asked. I watched them load my desk, my books, my memories. Leave it. It belongs to someone else now. The hardest was Vivian's jewelry box. Miranda once told me I should keep it to pass on someday. Maybe I would. Maybe not. That would be my choice now. I left an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, a short note. Miranda and Ethan, I have moved out. The keys are on the counter. Financial support is canceled. You wanted independence from me, now you have it. Don't contact me until you are ready to apologize. My new address will stay private until then. Later, as I signed papers in my new apartment, the phone buzzed. Miranda's name lit the screen. Dad, your things are gone. There's a note. I moved out, I said. You can't just leave. This is your home. Ethan's voice cut in. Garrett, we can work this out. The startup, the investors. You told me not to expect to stay much longer, I said evenly. I took your advice. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Please, don't call again until you're ready to talk about respect. I powered off the phone. Through the window, Portland's nightlights glimmered. Tomorrow I would explore the neighborhood, maybe find a coffee shop or the library. Tonight, I would order pizza and enjoy it on my own, with no one expecting anything except a tip for delivery. Monday morning, the revolving doors of Cascade Financial carried me into marble halls and hushed voices. My meeting with Victor Hayes was set for 10, but I came early. Preparation had become habit. Mr. Sinclair? Victor rose from behind his desk, hand extended. He was 20 years younger, sharp in his gray suit. I've got your accounts here. We sat facing Burnside Avenue through tall windows. Outside, commuters hurried to their jobs. Inside, I was preparing to shed mine. You want to cancel the $4,200 monthly transfers? They've been running 5 years straight. Yes, I said, pulling out the folder I had prepared, and I'd like the full total. He typed fast. Numbers rolled across the screen. His expression tightened. Excuse me, total comes to $390,000 over 12 years, mortgages, tuition, emergencies, everything. Then it's time they pay for their own house, I said flatly. He printed the summary, each page another piece of freedom I had traded away. By noon, I was in Kenneth Wade's law office 3 blocks away. His secretary squeezed me in once I said estate planning and asset protection. Urgency meant billable hours. Kenneth spread papers across the table like battle plans. Irrevocable trusts, homestead exemptions, offshore if necessary. At your age, protection is smart. I want to make sure nothing left can be touched if my daughter decides to come after me. Kenneth paused, pen in hand. Family disputes can get messy. The best defense is structure before the storm hits. Kenneth and I spent 2 hours locking down what was left of my savings. Oregon Wealth Shield trusts, new beneficiary designations, executor appointments. Zara's name appeared again and again as the primary heir. She had always been honest, never demanding, never manipulative. Zara receives everything through the trust, Kenneth said as I signed one document after another. Once this is in place, your daughter has no legal claim. At 2:30, a notary arrived, checking each signature with military precision. Every stamp felt like another lock on the fortress I was building. By the time I left his office with a leather portfolio full of certified copies, I felt lighter than I had in years. Climbing the stairs to my apartment, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Dad, it's Ethan. We need to talk. Coming by at 7. I deleted it. Let him come. I had the papers now, and something stronger, the freedom to finally say no. At exactly 7, the bell rang. Through the peephole, Ethan's face looked warped but recognizable. He held a bouquet of yellow roses like a cheap truce. Garrett, he said, stepping inside uninvited. He scanned my bare apartment with thinly veiled disappointment. Nice place. Very minimalist. I set the flowers on the counter without bothering to find a vase. Miranda sent you? She was upset after Wednesday, he said, dropping onto my couch without asking. You know how emotional she gets. She didn't mean it. Sit down, Ethan. I took the armchair across from him. Tell me, when's the last time you remembered my birthday without Miranda reminding you? His smile twitched. That's not really. Look, we're talking about family, about your financial support. February 14, I said flatly. Valentine's Day. Hard to forget. And yet you have 9 years in a row. Garrett, that's different. This is about the future. I moved to the kitchen window. His BMW sat in a loading zone, hazards blinking. Last spring, during my knee replacement, I spent 3 days in recovery. Miranda visited once. You sent a card. Ethan bristled. What does that have to do with my business proposal? I'm offering you an investment, not charity. $160,000, I said, turning back to him. To someone who only remembers me when he wants money? That's not investment, that's delusion. His mask cracked. Fine. You want the truth? Miranda and I have been carrying this family for years. hosting dinners, keeping you busy after Vivian died. You owe us. My purpose now, I said evenly, is peace without you. He stood, pacing. You can't just abandon us. We have commitments, people depending on us. Find another ATM. His voice rose. You'll regret this. When you're sitting here alone while we succeed, I'm already alone. The difference is I chose it. Ethan snatched his jacket, fury spilling out of him. This isn't over, Garrett. Family doesn't vanish because you're having a senior moment. He slammed the door, rattling the frame. I watched from the window as he stormed toward his car, phone already at his ear. On my counter, the roses sat untouched, still wrapped in grocery store plastic. I dumped them into the trash. Headlights swept the window a moment later. A silver sedan pulled up where the BMW had been. Miranda's car. She sat in her car for several minutes, phone pressed to her ear, no doubt getting Ethan's version of his failed visit. Tomorrow would be her turn. Tonight, I heated leftover pizza and watched the news in silence. By Friday afternoon, Miranda appeared at my door right on cue. I had seen her circling the block earlier in the week, scouting like a soldier on patrol. Dad? She greeted me with a stage-ready smile, holding a white pastry box. I brought your favorite apple pie from Brewster's Bakery. Cinnamon and nostalgia, both fake, drifted into the apartment. She wore a soft blue sweater, light makeup, her sympathy costume. Setting the box on the counter, she added, just like Mom used to bake every Sunday. Truth was, Vivian burned more pies than she managed to finish, but I let Miranda run her script. Coffee? I asked. That would be lovely. We moved through the routine like actors, measuring grounds, filling the pot, setting out plates neither of us would touch. Miranda perched on my couch, purse placed for quick tissue access. I've been thinking about when you taught me to ride a bike, she said wistfully. You ran beside me 3 blocks even though your back was bad. You were always there. School plays, graduation, my wedding. Her eyes shined right on cue. The coffee finished brewing. I poured her cup, adding cream out of habit. Then I asked, when did you last visit me in the hospital after my surgery? Her act faltered. Dad, I was overwhelmed. The kids needed me. Ethan came once. You sent flowers. Zara drove up twice. Blake called daily. Her lower lip quivered. Are you punishing me for being human? For having responsibilities? I'm choosing independence over obligation. Real tears followed. We'll lose the house without your help. The kids will be homeless. Ethan's business could save us if you invest now. Or maybe it's time you find full-time work instead of part-time. Her crying cut off, replaced by anger. I work plenty, managing the house, supporting Ethan, raising kids. Zara's 19, Blake's 23. What kids are left to raise? You've become cruel, she snapped, pulling tissues from her purse. Mom would be heartbroken. This isn't the father who raised me. The father who raised you is tired of being your safety net. She stood, stiff with pride, leaving the pie on the counter like evidence of my coldness. Fine, but when you're alone, wondering why family never visits, remember this. She left without looking back. I opened the box. The pie was flawless. Golden crust, neat vents, polished like a display item. A store-bought gesture pretending to be love. 20 minutes later, my phone chimed. Grandpa, can I come Sunday? Mom and Dad are acting weird. Blake's message made me smile. Yes, bring your appetite. At least one family member wanted company, not money. Sunday, Blake arrived. He still had the spare key, but knocked anyway. A small courtesy that caught me off guard. Hey, Grandpa. He strolled in, glancing around with mild disappointment. Mom said you moved someplace tiny. 23, still dressing like a teenager, untied boots, sagging jeans, wrinkled flannel. He dropped onto my couch, sprawling across cushions I'd straightened that morning. Coffee? I asked, moving to the kitchen. Sure. The machine gurgled while I studied his reflection in the window. Same jawline as Miranda, restless like Ethan, but Vivian's eyes warm brown with gold specks. So, Grandpa, he said, tone casual but practiced. I need a favor. $2,400. My credit cards got out of hand. I poured 2 cups of coffee, adding cream to his the way Vivian always used to. I slid one across the table. So tell me, Blake, when are you planning to pay it back? You do not even have a job. I will find something soon, he said, sipping without meeting my eyes. Maybe something with cars. You know I am good with engines. Ralph Donovan's looking for a mechanic's assistant. I had been waiting for this. I reached into my wallet and pulled out the business card I had tucked there 2 weeks earlier for this very moment. $15 an hour, full benefits after 60 days. Blake's face twisted in that way I knew all too well, like a child bracing against vegetables at dinner. Grandpa, I do not want to work for some random guy. I just need quick cash to clear my debt. Then I will figure out the rest. And this debt? I asked. How did you rack it up? Just normal stuff, he muttered. Gas, food, clothes. Sometimes I helped out friends. Bars, video games, concert tickets? I pressed. His shoulders hunched, his whole body curling defensive. You have gotten cheap, he shot back. You always helped before. Remember when I needed money for technical school? I remember paying $6,400 for welding certification you never finished. That stung him. He jumped to his feet and paced to the window, back again, restless as a cornered dog. That was different. Other opportunities came up. Like what? Sleeping until noon? Playing online games until 3 in the morning? I leaned back in my chair. You do not understand how hard it is for my generation. Everything costs more, jobs pay nothing. This is for your benefit too. I held Ralph's card out toward him. Real skills, steady income, pride in what you do. Something solid. He slapped the card away. It fluttered to the floor, landing face up like an accusation. I do not need lectures about pride. I need $2,400. No. Just one word, but it landed heavy between us, final as a slammed door. Blake stared at me like I had grown another head, stunned that I could tell him no. Then his face hardened. Fine. Do not expect me to visit anymore. Do not expect me to care when you are old and lonely. I am already old, Blake, I said evenly, and I am starting to prefer lonely over used. He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the neighbor's wind chimes. From the window, I watched him march down the sidewalk, phone pressed to his ear. No doubt Miranda was about to get the report of his failure. My own phone rang before he even reached the corner. Zara's name lit the screen. I held it for a second, wondering what crisis I was about to hear, then pressed accept. Grandpa? Her voice sounded worn down, too heavy for 20 years old. I am glad you answered. It is chaos at home. Mom's screaming that everything's your fault. I leaned back in my armchair watching Blake shrink to a dot on the street. And what does Ethan say about his miracle business plan? He sold his BMW yesterday, Zara said quietly. The bank is threatening to take the house if they miss another mortgage payment. Warm satisfaction spread through me like good whiskey. 12 years of automatic transfers, and they could not even last 2 weeks without me. Maybe it is time for them to finally grow up, Zara. Mom took extra shifts at the cafe. She is working 60 hours a week, coming home exhausted and angry. They are fighting constantly about money. By Wednesday morning, I was strolling through Laurelhurst Park. Miranda's calls buzzed against my pocket, unanswered. The March sun touched my face, warmer than it had felt in months. Or maybe it was just freedom that made the air feel different. My days had fallen into a steady rhythm I hadn't known in years. Coffee at 7, the newspaper until 8, a walk through the park by 9:30, no frantic phone calls ruining breakfast, no guilt trips during the afternoon, just peace. The homeless man who fed pigeons near the sculpture garden nodded as I passed. We had built an unspoken understanding, two men who had chosen solitude over the tangle of family drama. You look happier these days, he said, scattering crumbs to a crowd of birds. Learning to live for myself, I answered. Smart man. Family can bleed you dry, if you let them. Back at the apartment, my phone showed 14 messages, all from Miranda, each one more desperate than the last. Dad, please call. We can fix this. The bank wants $6,700 now or they'll foreclose. Ethan's trying for loans, but his credit's shot. I'm working double shifts. My feet are bleeding. The neighbors are whispering about us. You're destroying the family over money. Please, just this once, help us catch up. I deleted them all without a second thought, then checked my accounts online. Numbers looked good, shielded by the fortress Kenneth Wade had built. Miranda couldn't touch a cent. That evening, while I ate leftover soup in peace, the phone rang again. Zara, I answered. Grandpa, Mom collapsed at work. They say it was exhaustion. She's okay, but her voice cracked. Zara, your mother chose this road, I said evenly. I set fair boundaries. She answered with manipulation. Blake came by asking for money for rent, she went on. Mom tore into him for half an hour. Good. Maybe she's finally learning. Through the window, downtown Portland shimmered with light. Somewhere across the city, my daughter was wearing herself out, trying to maintain a lifestyle built on my bank account. My son-in-law was learning that charm couldn't pay mortgages. My grandson was meeting responsibility for the first time in his life. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt free. The evening rolled on undisturbed. News at 7, reading until 9, early bed without family voices in my ear. The apartment Miranda mocked as tiny felt just right for a man who had spent 5 years shrinking himself to fit everyone else's needs. At around 10, movement outside my window caught my attention. A small group had gathered at the entrance of my building. Ethan's silhouette was unmistakable, hands cutting through the air as he barked instructions. I stayed in the dark, counting heads. 5, maybe 6. More than just Miranda and Ethan this time. They moved with purpose, like they had rehearsed it. Ethan led the way, Miranda beside him, Blake dragging his feet behind. 2 older figures brought up the rear, Gerald and Patricia Novak, Ethan's parents. Zara trailed along, reluctant even from a distance. I'd only seen the Novaks a handful of times in 12 years. Gerald, a retired factory man who believed hard work solved everything except his son's laziness. Patricia skilled in the same kind of manipulation she had clearly passed down to her boy. The group slipped into the building. A minute later, fists hammered my door. "Garrett, open up. We need to talk." Gerald's voice had the bark of a man used to being obeyed. I peered through the peephole, 6 faces lined up like soldiers in an intervention. Ethan held flowers again. Miranda clutched tissues. Blake sulked at the back. The Novaks flanked them like backup singers in a very off-key song. "Garrett, you're destroying this family," Gerald barked again. "Ethan is a good man trying to build something." I opened the door but kept myself planted firmly in the threshold. "Your son used me like an ATM for 12 years. "Family duty," Patricia cut in, her voice sharp. "You should be helping young people get started." "I did," I said flatly. "What I really did was help build a pattern of dependency. I'm ending that now." The hallway felt too small with 6 adults pressing in. Ethan gestured toward my apartment. "Can we come inside? This is too important for the hallway." "No." Miranda stepped closer, mascara smudged, tears already in position. "Dad, I know you're upset, but this has gone too far. We could lose everything." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before telling me not to expect to stay much longer." "I was angry," she stammered. "I didn't mean—" "You meant it," I cut her off. "All of you meant it. I was convenient when you needed money, disposable when you didn't." Gerald's face reddened. "You're being selfish. At your age, you ought to be thinking about legacy, about passing something to the next generation." "My legacy," I said, voice steady, "is teaching responsibility, not enabling failure." From the back, Blake finally piped up. "Grandpa, you're being mean. You never used to be like this." "Leave Grandpa alone," Zara cut in sharply. "You never cared about him." Her words hit the group like a slap. She raised her voice over theirs, strong and clear. "When did any of you visit him in the hospital? When did you ever remember his birthday without someone reminding you?" Patricia turned on her with that sugary cruelty I'd seen before. "Young lady, adults are talking. You don't understand the complexities. I understand you're bullying an old man because he won't hand you money anymore." Zara shot back. The hallway exploded with noise. Ethan demanded respect for his parents. Miranda sobbed about losing the house. Gerald thundered about family duty. Patricia whined about ungrateful children. Blake muttered about fairness. Zara alone stayed quiet after that, standing a little apart, her eyes locked on me, far older in wisdom than her years allowed. "Enough." My voice cut through all of it like a blade. I gave Miranda and Ethan $390,000 over 12 years, weddings, mortgages, emergencies, so-called opportunities. And what did I get back? Forgotten birthdays, ignored hospital stays, and endless demands for more. "That's what family does," Gerald barked, sputtering. "You help each other." "Help flows both directions," I said coldly. "What you call family was exploitation." I stepped back into my apartment, my hand closing on the door. "Don't contact me again until you're ready to apologize. Zara, you're always welcome. The rest of you, learn to handle your own lives." I closed the door with finality. Through the wood, the arguments carried on. Ethan's parents scolding Miranda, Miranda crying, Blake complaining, Zara trying to defend me against the rest. I walked to the kitchen window and waited. 20 minutes later, I saw them spill out onto the sidewalk, still bickering. Zara broke away, turned back, and waved up at my building. Even from 3 floors above, I saw it. The others climbed into Gerald's old pickup and drove off. Zara lingered a minute longer before heading toward the bus stop. Peace returned to my apartment. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. Chosen. Weeks later, I sat in Kenneth Wade's office again. He spread documents across his conference table. "We're finalizing an irrevocable trust with your granddaughter as the sole beneficiary," he explained. May sunshine streamed through his downtown windows, casting light across legal protections I should have built years ago. "The Oregon Wealth Shield Trust gives you shielding against creditors," Kenneth continued. "Even if your daughter tries to sue, she can't reach these assets." I signed each paper with a steady hand. The months since March had taught me that real freedom required strong walls. No more power of attorney, no more emergency access, no more loopholes for manipulation. "International diversification for your pension would also be wise," Kenneth added. "Canton Swiss banking provides legitimate privacy." By noon, the fortress was complete. Wire transfers, trust accounts, safeguards, higher walls than any guilt trip could ever scale. That afternoon, Diana Marsh drove me through Lake Oswego neighborhoods. "Silence costs more out here than downtown chaos," she joked as we toured. But when we stopped at a cottage on Oswego Lake, I knew. 2 bedrooms, a wide deck overlooking the water, garden space that Vivian had always wanted. The last owner was a veteran, Diana explained. He left it to his daughter, but she's in California. She wants a quick sale. I made my offer on the spot. Full asking price, cash down, no contingencies. The seller accepted within hours. That evening, I went to the Milwaukee Community Center for their weekly dinner. Retirement had opened time I hadn't allowed myself during the years I played family ATM. Conversations flowed easy among men who understood service, sacrifice, and the price of loyalty. "You look happier these days, Garrett," said Ralph Donovan, the same garage owner Blake had turned down. "Family situation resolved?" "I resolved myself out of it," I told him. "Smart man. Family will drain you dry if you let them." As dessert was served, I caught the eyes of a woman across the room. Silver hair, brown eyes behind glasses, the kind of smile that carried wisdom earned through life's rough edges. Claire Whitmore. "Don't think I've seen you here before," she said, offering me apple pie from a tray of homemade desserts. "Just started coming," I replied. "Garrett Sinclair." "Claire Whitmore. I volunteer here twice a week. Lost my husband 4 years ago. Heart attack. Teaching kept me busy, but retirement needs structure." We talked until the janitor started stacking chairs. She told me about 32 years teaching 4th grade, 2 grown children who lived responsibly, and a life she'd held together without leaning on anyone. As she gathered trays, I asked, "Maybe we could continue this conversation over coffee sometime." Her smile widened. "I'd like that very much." The cottage purchase wrapped up in just 3 weeks. I moved from my downtown apartment to a lakeside retreat with the ease of someone who had finally learned to travel light. The deck became my place for morning coffee, Oswego Lake my evening meditation. Claire came by the second Saturday after I settled in, carrying a tin of homemade cookies and a genuine curiosity about my new space. We sat side by side on the deck, watching sailboats glide across the water, talking about books, travel dreams, and the relief of building a life around choice instead of obligation. "Independence at our age feels revolutionary," she said, accepting a second cup of coffee. "I spent 12 years forgetting what it felt like," I admitted. As the sun dipped low and painted the lake in copper light, the phone rang. Zara's name flashed across the screen, my first family-related interruption in weeks. "Grandpa, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice heavy with both exhaustion and vindication. Claire and I were grilling salmon on the deck, the golden hour turning our dinner into something like a celebration. "Tell me," I said, settling deeper into my deck chair, the one I'd started reserving for family calls. "Mom and Dad are divorcing. She filed papers last week. Said she finally realized Dad's business dreams were always just dreams." Claire glanced up, raising an eyebrow, but kept seasoning vegetables with that steady, quiet competence I'd come to admire. She didn't need explanations. She understood the mess families could create. "I'm sorry to hear it, Zara, but everyone has to face the consequences of their choices." Mom's working 70 hours a week between two jobs. Dad's back living with Grandma Patricia. His startup collapsed completely. Turns out he's awful with money. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ethan, who had once demanded I invest in his so-called brilliance, couldn't even handle the money he already had. Miranda, who told me not to expect to stay under her roof, was now learning what real independence demanded. Blake called me yesterday, Zara added. He wanted your number. My shoulders stiffened. What did he say? He's been working at Ralph's Auto for 2 months, making steady money, learning real skills, said he wants to apologize and thank you. Claire smiled, squeezing my shoulder. She had heard the whole story of Blake storming out, and she understood why I hadn't given in. 20 minutes later, the phone rang again. Blake this time. Grandpa, I hope you don't hang up. I'm listening. I wanted to thank you, and I'm sorry for calling you mean. Ralph's teaching me engine rebuilds. I'm making enough to move into my own apartment next month. That's excellent news, Blake. I get it now. If you'd given me the money, I would have wasted it. I had talent, but no work ethic. Ralph's showing me both matter. When the call ended, Claire and I sat quietly watching the salmon cook. A blue heron stood still at the water's edge, patient and steady, the same patience I'd finally found in myself. You saved that boy from becoming like his father, Claire said softly. Tough love is still love, I answered. We had been planning a September trip to Crater Lake, my first vacation in 5 years that wouldn't be ruined by family emergencies. Claire had already mapped out trails, researched lodges, even asked a neighbor to water her plants. The idea of real anticipation felt foreign, but wonderful. Miranda texted again today, I told Claire as we carried food inside. She wants to talk. Are you ready for that conversation? She asked. I'm ready to keep my boundaries, no matter what she says. Claire's kitchen skills blended easily with my grilling. We'd fallen into routines that felt natural, never forced. She kept her own home just a few miles away, but stayed often, bringing groceries, cooking meals, sharing the kind of companionship that adds to solitude instead of smothering it. On Thursdays, we went to the Milwaukee Community Center together. Claire's teaching background helped her connect with the younger vets, while my years of service gave me perspective they listened to. One evening, as we washed dishes after dinner, she said, I never thought I'd find companionship again at my age. Neither did I admitted, not after realizing how one-sided my family ties had become. Through the kitchen window, headlights swung into my driveway. I recognized the silver sedan immediately. Miranda's car, the one I had helped her buy 3 years ago. Speaking of family, Claire said quietly, following my gaze, Thanksgiving morning found us preparing dinner for our chosen family. Zara drove in from Salem at 2. Blake arrived an hour later, carrying rolls he'd baked in his own apartment. The cottage filled with the smell of turkey, stuffing, and the kind of peace that comes when relationships are built on respect instead of obligation. Zara just texted, she's bringing pumpkin pie, Claire said, checking the turkey with the expertise of someone who had run more holidays than she could count. Blake can't wait to show us pictures of his place, I replied, setting the table with my grandmother's china. Those dishes had survived wars, moves, and family storms. Now at last they were being used for what they were meant for, celebration, not sacrifice. The doorbell rang then, hard and urgent, shaking the moment. Through the peephole, I saw Miranda's face. Drawn, desperate, worn down far beyond her 46 years. She wore clothes I remembered from 2 winters ago, and her whole posture sagged like someone who had run out of options. Dad, please open the door, she said, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you. Claire stepped quietly beside me. 4 months of living side by side had taught us how to handle these moments, together but with respect for each other's boundaries. She didn't interfere, but I could feel her support. I opened the door, though I stayed firm in the threshold. Hello, Miranda. Dad, I lost the apartment, she blurted out. The landlord evicted me last week. I'm staying in a motel, but I can't keep paying. Please, one last time, help me. Just enough for first month's rent and security deposit. $4,000. I promise I'll pay it back. Her voice carried a rawness I had never heard from her before. The sound of someone realizing that pride can't pay rent and manipulation doesn't buy stability. I'm sorry for your situation, Miranda, I said evenly, but help without responsibility won't save you. She pushed past me, walking into the cottage living room. Her eyes roamed over the furniture, the wide windows, the lake view, every sign of the security she once took for granted. This is what you chose over your own daughter? A nice house while I'm homeless? I chose self-respect, I told her, over feeding destructive patterns. Claire stepped forward, calm but firm. Miranda, your father has been helping for 12 years. Maybe it's time you helped yourself. Who are you to judge our family? Miranda snapped, her voice rising in the same tone that used to cow me into silence. I'm someone who had to learn independence after my husband died. It's Skirter, Claire replied steadily. And your father is teaching you the same lesson. Dad, this is cruel, Miranda cried. Mom would never approve of you treating me this way. The mention of Vivian hit me like a punch, but I'd prepared for it. Your mother would want you to be strong, to stand on your own 2 feet. She would be brokenhearted to see what dependency has done to you. At that, Miranda crumpled into tears. This time they were real. I don't know how to do this alone. I've never had to. You're 46 years old, I said gently but firmly. It's time to learn. She left soon after. Out in the driveway, she passed Zara, who had just arrived with pumpkin pie in her hands. They barely acknowledged each other. Zara stepped inside wearing the look of someone who had seen enough drama to know it by heart. Mom asked me to convince you to help her, she said, setting the pie on the counter. And what did you tell her? I asked. That you've already done more than enough, and maybe losing everything is the only way she'll learn what working people already know. An hour later, Blake arrived carrying warm rolls and photos of his one-bedroom apartment. His face carried a kind of satisfaction I'd never seen in him before, the pride of earning, of standing on his own. Grandpa, I saw Mom leaving as I drove up, he said. She looked upset. Your mother is finally learning hard lessons about responsibility, I told him. Good, Claire said firmly. Real love sometimes means letting people face the consequences. We gathered around the table, me, Claire, Zara, and Blake. 4 people who had chosen to build relationships on mutual respect instead of financial transactions. The turkey came out golden and perfect. Conversation flowed easy. Gratitude filled the air, real and unforced. My phone rang during dessert. Miranda's name lit the screen. I looked at it, then at the 3 faces around my table. People who valued me for being here, not for what I could provide. People who gave as much as they received. I turned the phone off and set it aside. More pie, anyone? Outside the windows, Oswego Lake caught the last of the sunset, perfectly still. Inside, I sat surrounded by my chosen family, a family built on respect, independence, and love that lifted rather than drained. The silence around us wasn't empty anymore. It was complete. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for watching.